Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. This is Preacher Moss, host of the SOS to ShOUT show. Normally we would be done, but right now the show would be off. But let me apologize. This is a faux pas. This happens. And for once in a while, I was involved in a very intense conversation. No excuse, but at the end of the intense conversation, I exhaled, and a brother messed around, took a exhale too deep, and I fell asleep. I don't know if I can even explain that to people, but I fell asleep. I was tired. Had an excellent weekend here at Marquette University with the Alumni Association, the Black Alumni Association. I want to give them a round of applause. They put on an excellent program throughout the week. The number one. The number two is the fact that we had people who actually came out, the young students, the young African-American students. There was a male and a female. They are part of the highest part of student government at Marquette University. And I really, really appreciated what they did in that space. So those are two things I want to say. And, you know, for those who will watch this, I just want to say mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. What I mean is sometimes to the best of your ability, you're going to find yourself in a situation scenario where you go, well, I didn't expect that to happen. And what I mean by that is, let me even put that up here, just so when people see it, it will be spelled correctly. Mistakes happen. What I've learned over the past couple months here is actually, that the forgiving process actually doesn't have to be a forgiving process. It's much more a reconciling. It reconciles things that we do. When we make a mistake, a lot of times we will go back and calibrate how we got to that point in time and really, really be introspective, trying to understand how and when this happened, why this happened, and legitimately how we can do better. Myself, the show being late today was funny because I had been needing a nap all day. Now, many of you guys don't know. Many of you don't know that at my age, I require naps. Not a big, long nap, but, I try and take it early in the day because I get up fairly early, and getting up early, and particularly you're traveling in time zones, sometimes you'll find that Fajr time, prayer times change. And it's not an excuse. It's actually a revelation that we have to be flexible with ourselves. We have to do a much better job being flexible with ourselves, and also how we communicate with our own personal development. When I say communicate with our own personal development, it means that we all have expectations of ourselves. We all look to our inner selves to be better. We look to develop circles of people and networks and circles of influence that will inspire us to do better. But at the same time, you have to also establish some type of rubric that lets you be you. When you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up. The person I was talking to earlier today, I literally had to tell that person, one of the things that you really need to work on is you have to have confidence in the fact that you have confidence. That you don't capitulate to all these doubts and fears that haven't happened yet. And even so, even when you do have a feeling, we're not going to be 100% all the time, and we will have doubt. That's a part of our natural process. But I say find the doubt in the fact that you were curious about how you could perform. Like many people do this. I know I do this as an exercise. Oftentimes, as an athlete, as a comedian, a lot of times I would go to situations where I knew I was not going to necessarily perform well. Or to that, I was going to be in a situation where I was compromising my performance. But what I learned was how to manipulate and how to work that situation and take mind data, not just take data, but mind data, and trying to figure out how is it, particularly, I can still be effective in this space? Oftentimes, psychologically, and I was just telling this to my friend of mine, I said, psychologically, we have so much distraction around us that we can become lazy about how we turn over our cognitive surplus, how we don't develop our dissonance to the negativity and things like that. Like right now, plain and simple, a lot of people are feeling very displaced. They question discernment of the government, law enforcement, because we're having so many mass shootings. If you turn on everything about mass shootings, but we're not talking about the skill that people don't have internal controls. When I say internal controls, let me stipulate this. Internal controls means that we understand right and wrong. If you have somebody that does not understand right and wrong, that they are a moral individual, then the idea of having the ethics, the morals, it doesn't apply in this particular situation. It doesn't apply in this situation. And oftentimes, particularly in the United States, we take mistakes and we magnify the mistakes in the context that this person somehow did not have the internal control, the internal locus to look at what was right and wrong, to literally say yes, no, no, yes. The power of no in the United States has totally it's been reversed. We say no to the healthy things. We say no to the things that make sense. We say no to the things that give justice, equality, logic, and reason to a plethora of situations. Just recently, and you're going to see this when they start bringing out all the information of Roe versus Wade, the abortion situation. When they bring that, you're going to understand the logic that went into it, and you're going to question it because you're going to go, that doesn't necessarily make any sense. That the foundation, if you will, for this case being overturned is going to be somebody who has nothing to do in our era. This is a judge for over 100 years ago. He has nothing to do with our era. All right, let me get some people in here who've been so kind. First up, we got this is Roy, this is my main man. How you doing, beloved? Sean Robinson from Washington, D.C. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good to see you on the show, Aki. I hope everything's going well for you, man. Keep an eye out. We're going to be doing a comedy special, Preacher Moss Presents type of thing. Presents some Muslim comedians. Would love for you to be in the house, man. It would mean a lot for me. In fact, I know I have your info. I'm going to make sure that I get a note out to you because I would like for you to be my special guest. All right. And anyone else who wants to come, you can come to Washington, D.C. I can't pay for your air flight, but you know that you're more than welcome. All right. My main man, Altaf Rashid, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Altaf, I just explained to people, man, I took a dip. I have no excuse. I need to set an alarm clock, all of that. In fact, I did set an alarm clock. Hit the snooze. You know how it goes. Sometimes, sometimes it rocks like that. So don't hate me, people. I'm normally on my game a little bit tighter than this. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But I see my brother tuned in. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Loyalty, brothers and sisters, loyalty. I appreciate it. And you know, this is sort of like a small open mic room, if you will. This feels like a small open mic room. Right? We can all feel free to talk and express ourselves freely. So don't let me monopolize anything. If you got something to say, please say it. I mean, I'm talking about mistakes happen, but I'm going to get to the other part of that as well. Brother Eric, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, beloved? Hope everything's going well in the city of Houston, man. And I don't know what the weather is. I don't know if it's hot, if it's raining. I just hope, brother, that you are having a wonderful day in the city. And again, peace and blessings to you. Thank you so much for tuning in on this late hour. And my friend Sean said, I'm there. Well, I want you to be there, Sean. Like I said, you're going to be my special guest. Now, here's the thing about mistakes happening. And anyone can feel free to jump in. In America, no, let's say in life, love, religion, career, mistakes happen. But the permissibility quotient has been dramatically increased, which means when I say the permissibility quotient has been dramatically increased, what I'm saying is while mistakes happen, we are allowing mistakes to happen over and over and over and over again. The gravitas of your mother or your father saying to you when you were doing something, do it again, you knew that wasn't a clue to do it again. You knew that they were talking about if it happens one more time, you might have to go meet Jesus. But we don't have that now. We have a society that rewards mistakes. When I say rewards mistakes, I don't mean that we look at a situation, we see how you grew for it. We literally reward mistakes, and we've gone away from the fact that we're an investigative society. Like when we talk about journalism these days is wrought with mistakes. It's wrought with inaccurate information. And that if you're not going to be willing to step in the fray and correct these things, one, or step in the fray and say this process is no good, what you have is a remaining body. And that remaining body is what you see in terms of a prototype, a template. This is how people address one another. This is how people function, like in politics. Nobody ever said effectively that when Trump went on this whole thing of, they stole the vote, that was a mistaken strategy. He never wanted to be seen as mistaken. And if you get a crowd of people that don't acknowledge mistakes at the top side, because acknowledging a mistake is at the higher end of emotional intelligence, that you recognize a mistake before somebody else recognizes a mistake, that you see something wrong before the masses see something wrong, that you can take something that's incorrect and say, this is incorrect, and be able to put it out to the mass, which requires one, integrity, sincerity, number two, and number three, courage. So are we in a society, brothers and sisters, does not value courage? Because that's the thing about mistakes. What do we know? We give a shout out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Aika from Indonesia, Dapaka, Indonesia. Good to see you. It's been a minute. But if you are afraid to make a mistake, it means that you are in denial of a natural process. The yin and the yang of knowledge is to know something that is correct and then to know that something is not correct. And if we choose a thing that's not correct, we've made a mistake, but it's as part of a process of human evolution, whereby on the other side of emotional intelligence, we will establish a rubric that will help us reduce mistakes. We will establish a template that will help us be much more efficient and reduce mistakes. Why I say mistakes happen as a natural process, it needs to be calibrated to where we are now. Because now you see that mistakes cost lives. Am I talking about the mass shootings? Yes, absolutely. But we're talking about failed policies that allow for mass shootings. That you can look at legislation to understand on the forefront that if it moves forward, it's going to be it's a bad mistake to let it move forward. But then people let it move forward anyway. And not to go away from religious theodicy and things like that, but we have religion as a foundation, as a pedagogy that expresses the fact that in choices, as a part of all our religious tradition, all of our cultural tradition, in choices, we have established that minority builds culture. Mistakes build culture. In medicine, health, politics, finances, we are a society that has evolved by mistakes. I had a friend of mine one time. He didn't want to take his driver's license. And when we got pulled over, the officer said, license registration. He said, I don't have either one. And the officer looked at him and said, why do you not have a driver's license? And my friend said, well, I know I wasn't going to be traveling out of state, so I didn't think I needed it. See, that's a mistake. And while my friend got arrested for not having a driver's license and driving without a registration or insurance, What was interesting was when we talked about it, I said the mistake you made was in letting the guy think that you didn't make a mistake, that somehow you weren't human, that somehow you knew you were making a mistake and you moved ahead with it anyway. That you were clear that this was a failed process. And you just shared this guy that, hey, you're going to have to deal with my failed process. I'm like, that's why people go to prison all the time because they make mistakes. So listen, I'm going to take a break. But what I want everybody to do is just understand that, okay, as much as I talked about this, there's a certain point of clarity I want us to have, which is we all have the ability to reduce mistakes. I just laid out mine for why the show was late. I should have taken a nap. When the closer you get to the show and you haven't taken a nap, you sleep, the likelihood grows that you may sleep past your. And shout out to the brother Bilal Salahuddin, who gave me a call. He gave me a text to see we were on today. I appreciate you, brother. But that's people looking out. And I just told him, I said, man, I didn't even program the show today. Moving around, things like that, and taking calls, that's all well and good. But I have a protocol. I have a process of how this thing gets to it. So that's on me. Again, I apologize. So let's we ran a little bit, but I'm gonna start the show. We're back. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Bilal. Shout out to Brother Bilal who sent me a text and said, hey man, what's up with the show? Brother Bilal, I told everybody, you probably heard it. I told everybody, man, I hit the snooze button at about 4:30, man. I wasn't on my game. Thank you so much for sending me a text. But I was telling everybody this whole thing about how mistakes happen. And I apologize, but I'm not looking to be forgiven. Mistakes happen. It's natural. I got sleepy. I slept. Body has rights. It happens. But what I was pointing out, brothers and sisters, is that somehow, someplace in this great big old world, we've been blessed with discipline. We've been blessed with discipline. We've been blessed with emotional currency of forgiveness, emotional currency of mercy, the emotional currency of reason, logic, and empathy. I have softened my ways some days because I was been I'll be honest, I can be tough. I can be very, very online about things like that. It has to be this way, this way, this way, this way, very pragmatic. But I've learned, and I've not just learned, I've been reintroduced to the fact that sometimes, someplace, the mistake necessarily isn't a mistake. Let me say it again. That the mistake isn't necessarily a mistake, but the mistake is a calibration because it allows us to stop, reset, review, renew, and reintroduce ourselves to the situation. I believe honestly that the mistake is a divine tool for human development. Let me say that again. I believe that the mistake is a divine tool for human development. I believe that marriages throughout the world could actually be saved if people understood the value of a mistake. That somehow, and I'm not talking major mistakes, I'm not talking about major sins, I'm talking about the small stuff. It was a mistake to say this. I should have maybe done it this way. I should have asked, because the thing about mistakes is individually, they hurt you. But when they develop a theme, that's when it hurts you the most. But on the flip side, you think about business. You think about some of the things, some of the tools that we use. The iPhone was before the iPhone. You had the iPod, and who's supposed to make money off an iPod? You know what's supposed to make money? 3M was supposed to make money. Kodak was supposed to make money because they had all the ideas for the phone and the files. Well, actually, it was Sony. Sony had the Sony Discman, and you could put all these little songs on a disc. And they reinvested their money in Sony Discman when Apple was going, wait a minute, we can take all these files, all these musical files, and put them in this little thing. And eventually it went from an iPod to an iPhone. Sony dropped the ball. They made a huge mistake. And if you want to see read the book, I think it's called $1 Billion Mistakes. But in that process, you have to understand that people, and I really I appreciate this religiously. I appreciate this of some of my teachers that I had. Now, what you learn to appreciate with a mistake, if you're approaching it the right way, is that you can look at your own learning process. You can look at your own thought process. Sometimes I was going through a script. Well, I was going through the treatment for the script. I can't find the script. I was going through the treatment for the script, and I read the treatment. And I remember going through this process back in 1997, writing my first really full script. It's called Alien Sub Teacher. And I remember the attention to detail that I was trying to do because my friend and I, my partner, his name was Kelly Joseph, he was a fellow teacher. We were trying to sell this thing to get an agent and all of that. And I remember watching it. And just today, I actually pulled out the treatment. Somebody had it. A friend of mine had it in their stuff in storage. And I was like, hey, I was cleaning up my locker and I came. Now, the other script we wrote was garbage. I'm glad. I'm thinking I'm going to burn it up. But the treatment for Alien Sub Teacher was exactly what I'm talking about now. The understanding a mistake and having to be a part of your strategy is liberating. You know, the whole idea Alien Sub Teacher was about a teacher who on another planet, he speaks to his students that you can be more than you want to. That on this planet, they are confined to one status. You can't go any higher. You can only go lower, but this is how high you can go. And he talks to the kids about, exceeding their status. Then he gets in trouble and he's banished to Brooklyn, New York. And he runs into the same thing here down in Brooklyn, New York, except for the kids themselves have imprisoned themselves in this status that they don't want to learn because it's going to lead to more learning. You're going to learn more about it. They're afraid to make mistakes because it means that you're going to discover something new about yourself. That is the beauty of mistakes. So when I say mistakes happen, let me even add this. Mistakes happen for a reason. You know, sometimes we believe that when a mistake happens for a lot of folks is that something you didn't do. You didn't do your best effort. You missed something. You were lazy. You were not disciplined. A lot of times, some of the biggest mistakes happen when people are down and focused. And they think that they have dotted their I's and crossed their T's. And then life happens. Life rears its head. And then what happens is people are sitting there going, man, I didn't see that happen. I tell you this. I did Memorial Day. I was the host of the entertainment section. I wish I had it. I was the host of the entertainment section at Mass IGNA in Baltimore, Memorial Day weekend. And I'm watching all these guys. And there's a guy there with a kufi and African-American guy, kufi, big. Seemed real serious. He was a doctor somebody. And he was a part of the spoken word, I think. So they had three spoken word people going, well, two spoken word people went up, and they did their thing, and then he went up, and he rocked the house. He rocked the house because they didn't do just spoken word. He had people clapping and singing and call and response. And it was funny because I walked on stage and I told people, I didn't see that happening because when I was just talking to the guy, he barely said anything to me. He was very kind of offish a little bit. And I'm like, well, you get into your space. I'm an artist. I understand. But when he got up there, he was a totally different individual. And I had made a mistake about how I perceived him. But it was funny because the audience did the same thing because he had on a suit. He's very buttoned down. But when he got up and he did his thing, I said, That's a winner. I literally said, that's a winner. And I'm happy. Let me tell you, a lot of times, but I'm happy to guess wrong. I've told you this before. Some of the best comics in the world, some of the best comics in the world are the ones that make you guess wrong. They pull you in and say, come on with me this way. And you start assuming and you start forecasting. You start saying, oh, I know where this is going to go. And it's funny when you thought they were going to drop you off in this town and they drop you off 50 miles over there. And there's a sense of pleasure and engagement because they've done something new. They've informed some aspect of your thinking, your cognitive ability. They have somehow expanded it, and it makes that space that much more vibrant, that much more organic. So, brothers and sisters, as I say, mistakes happen. They happen for a reason. Do I say we embrace all mistakes? No, I do not. I did not say that. But in the organic mistakes that happen, where you are trying to achieve something, where you have a goal, where there's a learning opportunity. Let me say this, a learning opportunity that helps you increase your foundational space of how you're going to look at things, how you're going to treat people. I was with a jazz guy one time, and I saw him do a gig. It was like a mainstream gig. He was playing at a grocery store or something like that, and it was a young man that watched him play on the bass. Just watch him play the bass. And this kid was amazing. And some of the musicians walked over because the kid came over, young man walked over, and they were like talking to the young kid. He was kind of taken aback. He was a little scared. He was like, oh, he's a little scared. I get it. But the bass player was interesting because he took his bass off and he leaned down and he got eye level with the young man and he asked him questions. How are you? Where are your parents? Did you like the show? And I asked him, I said, what did you do? He said, well, one of the big mistakes is that to a young child, our height, our girth, our weight, our personage, if you will, is threatening because they're beginning to learn how to be a part of the world themselves. And he said, if you put yourself at eye level, they see themselves in themselves. Well, that was an amazing thing. For all the years I've done stand up, when I talk to young kids, I will stop and I will kneel down. For a young person, I kneel down and shake down. I don't shake them from up high. I shake them from right here. And I ask them about their day and just things like that. And I'm like, these are some of the simple things. So for our episode today of Mistakes Happen, again, I apologize. Mistakes happen. All right, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back at our regular time, which is 5 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern time. But shout out to everybody that came on. Sean, Altov, Eric, Sister Ika, Bilal, Sisters Sonia Dalton, Salahuddin. Thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out, B. You saved me. Thank you so much, man. I might still be asleep and I might have missed my gig. So much love. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.